Can Georgia's 2024 class lead them to another national championship? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. And I think they can for a number of different reasons. I've spoke about them before in other videos. I've written about them over on Dawg Post. You can read all of that and more by signing up to our free newsletter. That link is down below. But again, it starts in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. But I have to say, who they brought in the secondary, at cornerback, at safety, that is a big reason why I think Georgia is still going to be very good and probably elite on defense for years to come. And if you look back, when Georgia loses a game, normally it's because the secondary has some issues, the opponent has some big-time elite wide receivers running around, making plays, scoring touchdowns, and it's a reason why they almost lost to Ohio State in the Peach Bowl last year. Well, Georgia said, okay, we're going to get bigger in the trenches. We're going to get deeper in the trenches, but we need some elite defensive backs, and that's exactly what they brought in. Ellis Robinson, #1 cornerback in the country, long, athletic. He's got ball skills. The staff's already raving about him behind the scenes. He could be a multi-year starter and a top 10 NFL pick if he develops and progresses the way I think, and a way that a lot of people think. And, of course, KJ Bolden does a little bit of everything. He's just a playmaker. The guy makes plays. He's a natural football player with those instincts that you just can't teach. He also has length that you can't teach. He's got speed that you can't teach. He plays with a physical presence. He can help in the run. He can cover in the back end. He can intercept the ball. He can create turnovers. A little bit of everything. DeMello Jones at cornerback. He's another guy who can play offense, defense, one of the best pure athletes, not only in Georgia, but across the South in the 2024 class. Andre Evans is another fundamentally sound cornerback with size who can run. So I love what they did in the secondary. What they did there, also bringing in the #1 linebacker in the country out of Texas, could be a Butkus Award winner down the road if he progresses. And that offensive line, that defensive line, the 3 running backs are bringing in a pass-catching tight end and a quarterback who I think has the leadership skills and the potential to be very, very good in Athens if he's given an opportunity. He's got to win the job at some point down the road, right? He's not going to be just given to him. If you play quarterback at Georgia, you're going to have to wait a little bit. The last thing Kirby Smart wants to do is play a freshman quarterback in a gauntlet SEC schedule. You're just looking at 3 losses. You're looking at 3 losses. So if you're a quarterback out there, right, listen to me now. Probably should have listened to me. You're not going to play early at Georgia. You're not going to start at Georgia as a true freshman quarterback. That is not ideal. That's not what you want to happen. And if you're that quarterback and you're thrown in as a freshman, you're going to make mistakes. If you make mistakes at quarterback, you got a lot of people coming for you, man. I mean, that's just what it is. Shortstop of the Yankees, shooting guard for the Lakers. It is a big deal. Quarterback at Georgia is in that umbrella. There's so much pressure. So for Ryan Puglisi, his job is to sit, learn, develop, and be in a position to win that job down the road. I think he can. I think he's very good, and I think he is good enough to lead them to a championship. Now, when I look at it, I say, is this one of the best recruiting classes that Georgia's had under Kirby Smart? It could be, but we don't know yet. We can only talk about that a few years down the road. What we can talk about, though, is where could it possibly stand up with some of their best? I'm going to break this down in just a second, but the 3 consecutive classes that Georgia signed in 2018, 2019, and 2020, 3 of the best consecutive classes you'll see in the last 20 years for any program. I will stand on that hill. I mean, it doesn't get much better than what they did in those 3 years. 2018, remember this, okay? Jordan Davis, all-time Bulldog, first-round pick, doing very well with the Eagles. Jamari Sawyer, multi-year starter on the offensive line, one of the best offensive linemen in the Kirby Smart era. Former 5-star Tyson Campbell was very good at Georgia, now is pretty good with the Jaguars. Zamir White, James Cook, Quay Walker, first-round pick. Azeez Ojulari was very, very good, better than Brenton Cox, who was ranked ahead of him. And Christopher Smith, one of the more underrated players in Georgia Bulldog history, was in that class. A lot of people forget that. Channing Tindall, a forgotten about linebacker, was in that class. Devontae Wyatt, Kears Jackson, John Fitzpatrick, Jake Camarda. Just an incredible class. That, I think, is Georgia's best class so far. And Jordan Davis is a big reason why. But they also had guys like Brenton Cox, who's a 5-star signer with them. He ended up transferring, have no idea what he's doing right now. Otis Reese was a 4-star linebacker they signed. He ended up going to Ole Miss. Luke Ford had a lot of potential. He didn't make it. And Cade Mays, former 5-star, was in that class as well. Number 1 class, probably Kirby's best. But 2019 is up there as well. Listen to this. Nolan Smith, 5 stars, played like one. Trayvon Walker, number 1 overall pick. Nakobe Dean, Butkus Award winner. George Pickens, one of the best wide receivers in Georgia Bulldog history. Lewis Cine, first-round pick at safety. Stetson Bennett, arguably the greatest Georgia Bulldog football player of all time, was in that class as well. Don Blaylock was very good until he started getting hurt a little bit. Not necessarily his fault, but it happens. Xavier Truss, multi-year starter on the offensive line. Warren McClendon, multi-year starter on the offensive line. Kenny McIntosh, everyone remembers what he did last year, helping lead Georgia that 22 title. Zion Logue has been there forever. Tramel Walthour has been there forever. They both brought some experience, some depth, and veteran leadership to Georgia's defensive line the last several years. 2019 was very good. I'm not saying it's as good as it gets, because I still think 2018 might be a smidge better. If you want to say 2019 because of Stetson Bennett, totally get it. But 2020 was very good too. Very next year, Jalen Carter, Keely Ringo, Darnell Washington, Carson Beck, Broderick Jones, Cedric Van Pran, Tate Ratledge, Ladd McConkey, Jermaine Burton, Kendall Milton, Dacian Edwards, Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint, Nazir Stackhouse. Just that's like 10 plus guys right there who made a very, very big impact. And you're not going to see this across college football much, because more kids are transferring and entering the portal every single year. You're not going to see classes like this where you have 12, sometimes 15 guys make an impact and stay as long as they did. You're just not going to see it. So these 3 classes will go up as, one of the best 3-year stretches in college football history. That might be a stretch to some. I don't think so. I think I'm right, and I think that the numbers will back that up. So 2020, maybe not as good as 2019 and 2018, but still incredible class. Incredible class. You have to give a lot of credit to Kirby Smart. They do not miss on the recruiting trail, and we're seeing it each and every year. 2021, not as good, but still had a lot of good players. Obviously, Brock Bowers was in that class. He's probably a top 5 Bulldog of all time. Amarius Mims, staple at right tackle recently. He's probably a first-round pick. Javon Bullard, who may come back for this next year, was in that class as well. One of the lower-ranked kids of that class, just a baller. Just an absolute baller. A.D. Mitchell, the catches he made, some of them go down as some of the best catches in Bulldog history. I don't care what he does at Texas. I don't care if he wins the national championship. He's a Georgia Bulldog for life, and he will be looked at as a Georgia Bulldog first before Texas Longhorn. That just is what it is. That's a fact. It's a fact. Small Munden was in that class too. Dylan Fairchild, Micah Morris, 2 guys who played a good bit this year. If that's your right guard, left guard next year, that's a very, very good guard combination. And then Jamon Dumas-Johnson, who looks like he was going to get passed up by those linebackers in the 23 class. He said, you know what? I'm going to go to Kentucky. I'm going to take a step down because I'm not getting passed up by a younger kid. I mean, I think it's a pride thing. It's an ego thing. And he had to leave because the Young Bucks were passing him, is what it is. 2022 was good, but we don't know how good yet. But they did bring in a lot of guys: Malachi Starks, Michael Williams, Jalen Walker, Oscar Delp, as I fumbled my words this morning. Ernest Green at left tackle. Good class. I don't know if it's on the same level as that 18, 19, 20 group, but it's a good class. 23, too early to tell. Just too early to tell. A lot of promise, especially on defense, but this 24 class has the depth necessary. It's got the guys in the trenches. It's got an elite secondary and 3 outstanding linebackers, number 1 linebacker, number 3 linebacker playing together. This could be a group that leads Georgia to another national championship. And if we're looking back, I think could be in that group with that 18 class, 19 class, 20 class, which were all tremendous. I mean, those were 5-star classes looking back on them. It was full of depth, full of playmakers, and full of guys who made big plays and big moments in big games. And if you're in that 2018 class and you stayed for 4 years, anyone after 2018, 19, 20, you won a national championship. You saw a national championship at Georgia if you signed any time in the last 6 years with Georgia and stayed the path, stayed the course, stayed with the team. You've got a ring. So that's what Kirby can sell. If you come play for me, come and play for my program, there's a good chance you're going to leave as a national champion at some point in your career. So I think this 24 class is very, very good. It's the #1 class in the country. I think it's good enough in a number of different areas to lead Georgia to a national championship down the road. I would be very surprised if the guys in that class did not end their career at Georgia in the national championship if they stay a few years. Got to stay a few years. Can't transfer 1 year and, think everything's going to be handed to you. Not going to happen. Thanks for watching this video. Really appreciate it. And I hope to see you over on the website.